Her reign lasted for 64 long years. During this time, the moral authority of the crown gained strength, England became a prosperous country, and it achieved some outstanding successes in industrial development, sea transport, and expansion of the empire. Though descendants sometimes perceive the Victorian epoch as the symbol of narrow-mindedness, hypocrisy, and intolerance, the heyday of the British Empire is always associated with the name Queen Victoria. The future Queen of Great Britain and Ireland, and Empress of India, was born on May 24, 1819 in Kensington Palace in London. Her father, Edward, Duke of Kent, and the successor of King George III, died when the girl was only 8 months old. Her mother, Princess of Saxe-Coburg, brought up Alexandrina Victoria in great severity and gave her excellent education. The successor to the throne knew French, German, and Italian masterfully, and the former Prime Minister Lord Melbourne taught her history. Victoria was crowned in 1837 when she was 18. Despite her young age, she showed the strength of her character in the first months of her reign. I am very young and perhaps inexperienced, but I am sure that very few have more real goodwill and more real desire to do what is fit and right than I have. It was difficult to call her beautiful, but, being small and plump, she seemed very stately and undoubtedly looked attractive. She joked about herself, "Well, we are rather short for a queen." The young queen had fun at balls and was ready to become the next hostage of dynastic marriages in which love was no object. But Victoria's cousin Albert, Prince of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, who had been destined to be her husband, was liked by the queen. In her diary she wrote, "When I met him, it stirred up my feelings. How beautiful he is! His lips make me bewitched. His short mustache and whiskers are so charming." When Victoria was alone with him for the first time, she herself proposed to him. Albert, bent down on one knee, kissed her hand and said, "I will be happy to spend my life by your side." The wedding took place on February 10, 1840. The Queen loved Albert very much and obeyed him in everything. Gradually, the Prince Consort, the reigning Queen's spouse, became Victoria's irreplaceable assistant, a walking encyclopedia, and sometimes her attentive nurse. Albert convinced Victoria that the constitutional monarch should be higher than any personal political predilections. And the Queen, the Whig supporter, commissioned the leader of the Tory with the forming of a new cabinet. At the end of the 1840s, the British economy began to rapidly grow, and the London World Industrial Exhibition became the embodiment of it. Queen Victoria herself opened it. The monarchy became a symbol of stability, prosperity, and progress for the English people, and Victoria was considered to be the example of a perfect woman and mother. The royal couple had 9 children. Subsequently, Victoria appeared to be a relative to many reigning houses of Europe, including Russian Emperor Nicholas II, who married her granddaughter. Victoria, burdened with caring for her children, moved further and further away from management of the country and only signed documents which Albert had prepared. In 1861, Prince Albert suddenly fell ill with typhus and died before turning 43. Her husband's death was a terrible shock for English Queen Victoria, and she wrote, "My life as a happy person has finished. The world is now dim for me." By her order, the well-known concert hall, the Royal Albert Hall, was constructed in memory of her beloved husband. It was rumored that the Queen communicated with her late spouse by means of spiritualistic seances. Victoria for a long time refused from participation in public life and she was in mourning and complained that she lacked Albert's advice. She found a new advisor only 13 years later. It was the leader of the Tory party, Benjamin Disraeli, who engaged assiduously in strengthening the Institute of Monarchy. In 1848, when there was a wave of revolutions across Europe, England remained relatively stable. In 1864, the Queen saved England from intervention in the conflict between Prussia, Denmark, and Austria. In 1875, she prevented the Second Franco-Prussian War, and after the Indian Mutiny in 1877, Victoria became the Empress of India. Although during her long reign the royal authority was gradually losing its force, Victoria managed to become the first constitutional monarch who had influence on the country's destiny due only to her own authority. Even in old age, she had excellent health, a beautiful voice, sonorous laughter, and her blue eyes looked young and astute. Queen Victoria of England died in Osborne House in 1901 after 64 years of reign, which was the longest in British history. The Queen was buried near her husband, her closest friend, and advisor. The Victorian epoch has remained in the memory of descendants as the period of stability and prosperity of the British Empire.